Thank you for stopping by. Please subscribe to this channel. The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty streets of Mushin as Tunde Ige adjusted the small backpack on his 7-year-old daughter's shoulders. Bimbo giggled as her father knelt down to her level, his weathered hands gentle as he smoothed down her school uniform. "Daddy, you know I can walk to school by myself now," she said, her bright eyes sparkling with the confidence only a child could possess. Tunde smiled, though the weight of their circumstances pressed heavily on his heart. "I know you can, my little star, but Daddy likes our morning walks together. Besides, who else will tell me all the interesting things you learn in class?" It had been 3 years since his wife Adeola passed away from complications during childbirth with their second child, who they also lost. The double tragedy had shattered Tunde's world, leaving him to navigate single parenthood while working as a motorcycle taxi rider in one of Lagos's most challenging neighborhoods. Every naira he earned went toward keeping Bimbo in school and putting food on their small table in their one-room apartment. As they walked through the narrow streets, Bimbo chattered excitedly about her upcoming school project. "Miss Funmi says we need to write about our dreams for the future. I want to be a doctor like the nice lady who tried to help Mummy." Tunde's chest tightened at the mention of Adeola, but he managed to keep his voice steady. "That's a beautiful dream, Bimbo. You're smart enough to become anything you want." "But Daddy, doctors need to go to university, right? That costs a lot of money." The innocent question hit Tunde like a physical blow. At 32, he was already feeling the strain of his daily struggles. His motorcycle was old and constantly breaking down, requiring repairs he could barely afford. Some days he wondered how he would manage to keep Bimbo in primary school, let alone university. "Don't worry about money, little one," he said, forcing confidence into his voice. "Daddy will find a way. I promise." They reached St. Mary's Primary School, a modest building with peeling paint but dedicated teachers who genuinely cared about their students. Tunde watched as Bimbo joined her classmates, her laughter mixing with theirs in the morning air. For a moment, the sound lifted his spirits. No matter how difficult things became, seeing his daughter happy made every sacrifice worthwhile. The ride back through Lagos traffic was typical, chaotic, loud, and unforgiving. Tunde weaved through the congested streets on his aging motorcycle, picking up passengers and dropping them off across the sprawling city. By midday, the heat was oppressive, and his shirt clung to his back with sweat. It was during his lunch break, while he sat in the shade of a large tree near the National Theater, that his phone buzzed with a message that would change everything. The text was from Bimbo's school. "Mr. Ige, please come to the school immediately. There's been an incident." Tunde's heart stopped. He abandoned his half-eaten meal and raced through the streets, his mind conjuring every possible disaster. When he arrived at the school, he found Bimbo sitting in the headmistress's office, tears streaming down her face, her uniform torn and dirty. "What happened?" he demanded, kneeling beside his daughter. Mrs. Adebayo, the headmistress, looked uncomfortable. "There was an incident during lunch break. Some children from the neighboring private school were throwing stones over the fence. One hit Bimbo, and she fell while trying to run away." Tunde's anger flared. "And what are you doing about it?" "We've spoken to the other school, but—" Mrs. Adebayo hesitated. "Mr. Ige, this isn't the first time this has happened. The children from Pinnacle Academy seem to think they can bully our students because we're a public school." Tunde had heard of Pinnacle Academy, an elite private school that catered to the children of Lagos's wealthy elite. The fact that they shared a fence with St. Mary's had always been a source of tension. "I want to speak to someone at that school," Tunde said firmly. "Sir, I don't think that's wise. These are very powerful people. It's better if we handle this quietly." But Tunde was beyond reason. His daughter had been hurt, and someone needed to answer for it. He scooped Bimbo into his arms and marched out of the office, determined to confront whoever was responsible. Pinnacle Academy was a world apart from St. Mary's. The building was modern and pristine, with manicured lawns and expensive cars lining the driveway. Security guards in crisp uniforms stood at the gate, and Tunde immediately felt out of place in his worn clothes. "I need to speak to your headmaster," he told the security guard. "Do you have an appointment?" the man asked, looking Tunde up and down with obvious disdain. "My daughter was injured by students from this school. I don't need an appointment to seek justice." The guard was about to turn him away when a sleek black Range Rover pulled up to the gate. The vehicle was so polished it seemed to gleam even in the harsh afternoon sun. As the driver's door opened, Tunde found himself staring at one of the most beautiful women he had ever seen. She was tall and elegant, with natural hair styled in a sophisticated cut that framed her face perfectly. Her clothes were clearly expensive, a flowing white blouse and tailored navy pants that spoke of wealth and taste. But it was her eyes that captured Tunde's attention. They were kind and intelligent with a warmth that seemed genuine despite her obvious status. "Is there a problem here?" she asked, her voice carrying the refined accent of someone who had received the best education money could buy. The security guard straightened immediately. "No problem, Mrs. Okoro. This man was just leaving." "Actually," Tunde said, finding his voice, "there is a problem. Children from this school injured my daughter today, and I want answers." The woman, Mrs. Okoro, studied him for a moment, her gaze taking in his appearance and the small girl in his arms. There was no judgment in her eyes, only concern. "What's your daughter's name?" she asked gently. "Bimbo," Tunde replied, suddenly feeling self-conscious about his appearance. Mrs. Okoro approached them slowly, as if not wanting to frighten the child. "Hello, Bimbo. I'm Auntie Kemi. Can you tell me what happened?" Bimbo, who had been quiet since leaving St. Mary's, looked up at the elegant woman with curiosity rather than fear. "Some big boys were throwing stones at us during lunch. One hit me here," she pointed to a small bruise on her arm, "and I fell down trying to run away." Kemi's expression darkened. "That's completely unacceptable." She turned to the security guard. "Get Mr. Davidson on the phone immediately. Tell him I need to see him in his office right now." "Yes, ma'am," the guard responded, suddenly very attentive. Kemi turned back to Tunde. "I'm Kemi Okoro. My son attends this school, and I'm also on the board of directors. What happened to your daughter is inexcusable, and I'm going to make sure it's addressed properly." Tunde was stunned by her response. He had expected to be dismissed or ignored, not taken seriously by someone who was clearly a person of influence. I appreciate that," he stammered. "I just want to make sure it doesn't happen again." "It won't," Kemi said firmly. "But first, has Bimbo been seen by a doctor? That bruise looks painful." "We can't really afford—" Tunde began, then stopped, embarrassed by his admission. Kemi's expression softened. "Nonsense. There's a medical clinic just down the road. I insist on taking you there right now." At the clinic, Kemi insisted on paying for Bimbo's examination and treatment. The doctor confirmed that the bruise wasn't serious, but recommended ice and rest. Throughout the visit, Kemi was attentive and kind, asking Bimbo about school and her interests while they waited. "She wants to be a doctor," Tunde mentioned during a quiet moment. "Really?" Kemi's eyes lit up. "That's wonderful. The world needs more good doctors." "She's very smart," Tunde said proudly. "Top of her class. But I worry about, well, you know." Kemi nodded understandingly. "About affording her education?" Tunde's cheeks burned with embarrassment, but he nodded. "I work as an Okada writer. I make enough to keep her in primary school, but beyond that, education is the greatest gift you can give a child," Kemi said quietly. "And from what I can see, you're doing an amazing job as a father." Her words touched something deep in Tunde's chest. It had been so long since anyone had acknowledged his efforts, since anyone had seen past his circumstances to recognize his dedication to his daughter. After leaving the clinic, Kemi drove them back to Pinnacle Academy, where she had a very firm conversation with the headmaster. Tunde watched through the office window as she gestured emphatically, her posture radiating authority and determination. When she emerged, She looked satisfied. The boys responsible have been identified and will be suspended, she reported. There will also be a meeting with all students about respecting their neighbors and appropriate behavior. The headmaster has assured me this won't happen again. Thank you, Tunda said, meaning it deeply. You didn't have to go to all this trouble for strangers. You're not strangers anymore, Kemi replied with a smile. Besides, I have a son who's about Bimbo's age. I would hope someone would do the same for him if he were in trouble. As they prepared to leave, Kemi hesitated. I know this might be presumptuous, but would you like to have dinner tomorrow evening? My son Emeka would love to meet Bimbo, and I'd like to continue our conversation. Tunde was shocked. We couldn't. I mean, we don't really have the right clothes for... Just come as you are, Kemi interrupted gently. It's not about clothes or appearances. It's about good people spending time together. I'm excited to know that you watched to this point. Please don't forget to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. That evening, as Tunde tucked Bimbo into their small bed, she looked up at him with bright eyes. Daddy, I like Auntie Kemi. She's very nice. Yes, she is, Tunde agreed, his mind still reeling from the day's events. Do you think we'll see her again? Tunde thought about the dinner invitation, about the kindness in Kemi's eyes, about the way she had treated them with dignity and respect, despite their obvious differences in circumstance. I think we will, little star. I think we will. The next evening found Tunde standing nervously outside an upscale restaurant in Victoria Island, holding Bimbo's hand tightly. He had agonized over what to wear, finally settling on his best, and only, pair of dress pants and a shirt he had carefully ironed that morning. Kemi was already there when they arrived, and she stood to greet them with a warm smile. Beside her was a boy about Bimbo's age, with his mother's intelligent eyes and a shy smile. Tunde, Bimbo, I'd like you to meet my son, Junior, she said. Junior, this is Bimbo, the brave girl I told you about. The children hit it off immediately, chattering about school and favorite subjects while the adults talked. Tunde was amazed by how natural and unforced the conversation felt. Kemi asked about his work, his dreams for Bimbo, his life before becoming a single father. She listened with genuine interest, never making him feel judged or pitied. I started my logistics company 12 years ago, she told him during dessert. It wasn't easy being a woman in that industry, especially a young woman, but I had something to prove, both to myself and to everyone who doubted me. What about Junior's father? Tunda asked carefully. Kemi's expression grew slightly sad. He died in a car accident when Junior was 2. It's been just the 2 of us since then. Tunda felt a surge of understanding and connection. I'm sorry. I know how difficult it is to raise a child alone. Yes, you do, Kemi agreed. That's something not many people truly understand. As the evening progressed, Tunda found himself increasingly comfortable. Kemi had a way of making him feel valued and heard, something he hadn't experienced in years. When she insisted on driving them home, he didn't protest as vigorously as he might have. This is it, he said quietly, as they pulled up to his modest neighborhood. He felt embarrassed by the contrast between her world and his, but Kemi showed no signs of judgment. Thank you for tonight, she said. I haven't enjoyed an evening this much in a long time. Thank you for everything, Tunde replied. For helping Bimbo, for dinner, for treating us like we matter. You do matter, Tunde. Both of you. Over the following weeks, something beautiful began to develop between them. Kemi would sometimes stop by St. Mary's to pick up both children, taking them for ice cream or to the movies. She and Tunda began having coffee together while the children played, their conversations ranging from philosophy to parenting, to their dreams for the future. Tunde was amazed by Kemi's lack of pretension despite her wealth. She drove herself rather than using a driver, cooked meals for Junior instead of relying solely on household staff, and spoke passionately about using her success to help others. I've been thinking about starting a foundation, she told him one afternoon as they watched their children play in a nearby park. something focused on education for underprivileged children. I want to make sure that bright kids like Bimbo aren't held back by circumstances beyond their control. That sounds wonderful, Tunde said, though he couldn't help but wonder where he fit into her grand plans. As if reading his thoughts, Kemi turned to look at him directly. I'd want you to be involved, Tunde. You understand these communities in a way I never could. You know what families really need. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. I don't know anything about running a foundation, but you know about perseverance, about sacrifice, about love for your child, Kemi replied. Those are the most important qualifications. Their relationship continued to deepen over the months that followed. Tunde found himself looking forward to their conversations, to her laugh, to the way she made him feel like his opinions and experiences mattered. Kemi, for her part, was drawn to his genuine nature, his dedication to his daughter, and his quiet strength in the face of adversity. The turning point came 6 months after their first meeting. Tunde's motorcycle had finally given up completely, leaving him unable to work for several days while he tried to scrape together money for repairs. He was sitting in his apartment, staring at the bills he couldn't pay, when Kemi knocked on his door. I heard about your motorcycle, she said without preamble. I want to help. No, Tunde said immediately. I can't accept charity. It's not charity, Kemi replied firmly. It's an investment. I'm offering you a job managing the pilot program for the foundation we discussed. It comes with a salary, benefits, and a company car. Tunde stared at her in disbelief. Are you serious? Completely. I've been working on this for months and I need someone I trust to help me get it off the ground. Someone who understands what we're trying to achieve. But I don't have the experience. You have something more valuable than experience, Tunde. You have a heart. That evening, after Kemi had left and Bimbo was asleep, Tunde sat alone and allowed himself to cry for the first time in years. They weren't tears of sadness or frustration, but of relief and hope. For so long he had carried the weight of uncertainty about the future, wondering how he would provide for his daughter's dreams. Now, a path forward was opening up that he had never dared to imagine. The job offer was just the beginning. As they worked together to establish the foundation, spending long hours planning and discussing their vision, Tunde and Kemi grew even closer. Their friendship evolved into something deeper, though both were careful not to rush or assume anything. It was Junior who finally forced the issue. 8 months after their first meeting, as the four of them sat together at what had become their regular Sunday dinner, he looked up from his plate with the directness only children possess. Mummy, are you going to marry Uncle Tunde? Kemi nearly choked on her drink, while Tunde felt his face burn with embarrassment. Junior, Kemi exclaimed, that's not appropriate to ask. But Bimbo and I were talking, Junior continued, oblivious to the adult's discomfort. We think it would be nice if we were a real family. Then we could live together and be brother and sister properly. Bimbo nodded enthusiastically. We already feel like family anyway. That night, after the children were asleep, Tunde and Kemi took a walk along the beach at Tarkwa Bay. The moon was full, casting silver light across the water, and the sound of waves provided a peaceful backdrop to their conversation. They're not wrong, you know, Kemi said quietly. We do feel like a family. Sometimes I can't believe this is real, Tunde admitted. A year ago, I was just trying to survive each day. Now I have meaningful work, a future for Bimbo, and... He paused, gathering courage. And I've fallen in love with an amazing woman. Kemi stopped walking and turned to face him. You love me? Yes, Tunde said simply. I know we come from different worlds and I know people might not understand. But I love you, Kemi. I love your kindness, your strength, your brilliant mind. I love how you see potential in people others might overlook. I love how you make me want to be better than I am. Kemi's eyes filled with tears. I love you too, Tunde. I have, for months. I love your dedication, your integrity, your gentle heart. I love how you've shown me that wealth means nothing without purpose and that the most valuable things in life can't be bought. They kissed then, with the waves washing over their feet and the stars bearing witness to their declaration. The proposal came 3 months later during the Foundation's first major event. They had successfully provided scholarships to 50 children from underprivileged backgrounds, including full funding for their university education. As Tunde stood before the gathered crowd, speaking about the importance of believing in every child's potential, Kemi felt her heart swell with pride and love. After his speech, instead of stepping down from the podium, Tunde remained there and called Kemi forward. Confused but smiling, she joined him on stage. "A year and a half ago," Tunde began, "I was a man who thought his only purpose was to survive each day and protect his daughter. I had given up on dreams, on hope, on the possibility of love. Then I met a woman who changed everything." The crowd fell silent, sensing something special was about to happen. "Kemi," Tunde continued, turning to face her directly, "you saw worth in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You took a broken man and a frightened child and showed us what it means to be truly valued. You've given me not just a job, but a calling. Not just security, but purpose. Not just hope, but joy." He dropped to one knee, pulling out a simple but elegant ring. "I know I can't give you the luxury you're used to, but I can give you my whole heart. Will you marry me?" The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, but Kemi heard none of it. Through her tears, she could only see the man she loved, offering her everything he had. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." As Tunde slipped the ring onto her finger, Bimbo and Junior rushed onto the stage, wrapping their soon-to-be parents in a group hug that symbolized the family they had all chosen to create together. The traditional marriage ceremony took place 6 months later at Kemi's village. It was a colorful event. The wedding followed the next day in a beautiful ceremony that reflected both of their backgrounds. They were married at the National Theater, the same place where Tunde used to eat his lunch during his Okada riding days. The reception included traditional Nigerian foods alongside international cuisine, local musicians alongside a string quartet, and guests from every walk of life. The foundation continued to grow under their joint leadership, eventually expanding beyond education to include healthcare, housing assistance, and job training programs. Tunde's insights from his years of struggle, combined with Kemi's business expertise and resources, created an organization that truly understood and served the communities it aimed to help. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Share your thoughts in the comments section.